Hey y'all, thanks for stopping by. So today's the day. Fantastic Four First Steps is officially in theaters worldwide, and I'm really grateful for that. Not just because this is a movie I would like to see, but because it means I don't have to see Vanessa Kirby make this face anymore because the press run is done. She doesn't have to deal with the asinine juvenile questions that were coming from her through modern media journalists. Seemed more concerned with meme questions and jokes and quips than they were about asking actual questions of the actors and actresses that were in front of them. But it seems that netizens weren't so concerned with Vanessa Kirby's obvious discomfort with the people in front of and around her and their behaviors, and have instead directed their ire towards the male lead of this movie, Pedro Pascal, and some of his proclivities and behaviors with his female co-stars. The meme about him having anxiety and having to touch people all the time. This animosity has been growing a lot over the last month. I'd say it's reached a fever pitch in the last week, but this started with complaints about Pedro Pascal being in every movie. You've probably seen memes or jokes about stuff like this, where people are complaining, you've been waiting on seeing this movie or TV show for so long, and now the lead has been announced, and it's Pedro Pascal. And I can sort of understand this complaint. My dad didn't like Brad Pitt when he was alive, and Brad Pitt was on a run when my dad was still around. That was the Seven, Fight Club, all those years of Brad Pitt's heyday. Pedro Pascal is certainly in a run right now, probably 15 or 20 or so acting credits in the last 3 years alone. And some of these have been rather large pieces too. I think a lot of dweebs got some animosity towards the guy when he played Joel Miller because, he was a Chilean guy and not a white guy. Of course, one of the big ones, he was the Mandalorian for Disney. But probably where most of you saw him the first time was Game of Thrones. He was Oberyn Martell the Viper. That was in 2014, so 11 years ago. And it's important to note that before he got that spot, he had been in the acting world for about 20 years at that point, so he's not necessarily new to the game, but he has certainly been on a run for the past couple of years. Whenever I see this complaint, though, this actor is in so many movies or TV shows, two things. One, I almost always hear it from not a white person. Pedro Pascal, or that Deborah Wilson lady who does all the video games. And two, if you genuinely have this complaint about an actor or an actress, my advice to you is to watch more movies. Expand your horizons a little bit. Maybe stop watching English speaking only movies. Maybe don't watch only blockbusters. I know they might not look as clean, but there's a lot of stories out there for you to pay attention to. The main complaint, though, that I see about Pedro Pascal, the focus of this video, is the way he touches his female coworkers. On the subject of Fantastic Four, there's a clip floating around at one of the premieres, and it's the two of them on the red carpet, or the blue carpet, I guess. I don't know. It's the premiere of one of their movies, and yeah, he's a little bit touchy-feely, but they are a couple in this movie. That's Mr. Fantastic, that's the Invisible Woman. They are married. I've seen all sorts of think pieces about this clip, too. People saying, oh, I wouldn't let someone touch my wife like that. They'd be walking out in a body bag. Or that they would divorce their wife if they allowed a man to touch them like that. I've seen people point out these two clips a lot too, which I find very strange to say this is Pedro's doing when she's the one who's running into him. But one clip, of course, that has been making the rounds that I think a lot of you have been seeing is the one of Willem Dafoe's wife. This, of course, was when Willem Dafoe got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You can see Pedro touch his wife's chin, and Willem Dafoe gets this sort of point and stare at it. Some people will say this was Pedro Pascal taking this a step too far, that Willem Dafoe wasn't someone to mess with, and that if they weren't in public, he would have beat him up. But there's a part of me that also feels like if you just pay even the slightest amount of attention to the behaviors of these people, maybe you'll realize that wasn't the case, and that you're probably reading into this a little bit too much. There's a repeated complaint that Pedro Pascal only does this to his female co-workers, that his anxiety issues only flare up around beautiful women, and he doesn't do this around the men that he works with. But aside from cavorting around with Willem Dafoe like that, Oscar Isaac and him also have a fair amount of pictures and interviews together that just completely shatter this narrative that Pedro Pascal is only handsy with his female co-stars. Because what do you call this? Personally, I would just call it hugging a friend, holding a friend's hand. There doesn't have to be anything weird about it. And if you're playing relationship coach, psychologist for celebrities, I would just ask you to get out of your cuck chair for a little bit, you know, embrace the real world that you live in. Maybe try to improve some of your own relationships rather than trying to play relationship therapist for celebrities who will never pay attention to you in your life. If I had to take a stab at it, why Pedro Pascal is receiving such a wide berth of animosity online, I would boil it down to two things. One of them is a role that he took, Joel in The Last of Us. People got really upset with that because Joel wasn't this Texan white man that they expected from the video games, and they got a different color actor to do it. And that caused a lot of people to not like him. But on top of that, too, it's because he has a trans sister who he loves and supports. That is enough to draw the ire of the worst people on the internet, who will in turn start to just tell lies and make up stories about you, and then people start to run with it. People start to make posts and jokes and memes saying that you're being infidelis or that you're making women cheat on their husbands. When in all reality, you're just kind of a handsy guy. You just like hugging people. I didn't realize hugging was a problem. But maybe that's because I've never had women get mad at me for hugging them. I've noticed a lot of the guys who get upset with Pedro Pascal and his behaviors are the same type of guys who think you can't flirt with women in public anymore because their idea of flirting is just sexual harassment. It seems that they're distraught at the concept of a man who women are okay with being around and okay with being friendly with and physical with in a not sexual manner. And to that, I would just say skill issue. This is your problem to deal with, and you need to stop pushing your life onto other people. It's all very baffling to me, but frankly, I'm just glad that the movie is finally in theaters now. I've got vacation all next week, so I should be able to find some time to go watch it, and I hope you get the chance too. It seems like it's going to be a good movie. It's performing rather well. All the reviews have it in like the high 80s, which seems good for a comic book movie, if I gotta be honest. But time will tell how this will perform in box offices or how the audience will review it. I'm sure there will be some ridiculous anti-woke commentators writing their own reviews about this, so until we get the chance to laugh at Critical Drinker flailing over another Marvel movie, y'all try to have a good day.